Do you want to become the ultimate helicopter pilot in Battlefield 6? Well, in this video, I put together an extensive guide on how to properly maneuver your helicopter, how to prevent yourself from crashing, and I'll talk about perhaps the most important part of the helicopter that most pilots tend to neglect, the nose of the helicopter. I'll explain how utilizing the nose of your helicopter will change the way you fly forever, and I'll also put together some illustrations for you as well to show exactly how your nose angle affects everything from direction to altitude and even speed. Also, I'll go over my recommended controller settings for console and keyboard settings for PC, and I'll discuss the various weapon systems as well. So, let's dive into the video, pilots, and become the best pilot the Battlefield has ever seen. Alright, so to start things off, I'll put my controller configuration on the screen for you so you can check out my recommended setup. But remember, even if you don't use my exact controller settings here, this tutorial will still work for you as it's designed for all pilots regardless of your controller or keyboard setup. So for my configuration, I'll put it on the screen. You can pause it, take a look at how I have it set up. This is what I use, but again, feel free to mess with it and do your own configuration if you want to, but this is what I definitely recommend. And for this next part, I turn off the flight inversion control just because that's what I prefer, but I do know that some pilots prefer the flight invert option on simply because they want to replicate what the actual controls of a real-life helicopter or aircraft are doing. So it's really up to you, of course, and it's a matter of preference with the flight inversion. And by the way, if you're wondering about my PC control setup, I simply leave it as the default settings with the flight inversion off, of course. Now onto the really good stuff, how to master flying your helicopter in Battlefield 6. To really understand the more advanced stuff, you gotta first master the basics, of course, and that's where the throttle comes in. The throttle will lift your helicopter straight up or down, so in other words, you will gain altitude when you increase throttle and lose altitude when you decrease throttle. Make sure you practice this one control first, your throttle control, moving your helicopter up and down, because you will definitely need this basic skill later on, no matter how basic it may seem. And here is perhaps the most important part of this entire tutorial: how the nose of your helicopter affects your helicopter's movements. A lot of players think that positioning the nose in the upwards position will mean that their helicopter will automatically start to climb upwards, and this could not be further from the truth, because if you point your nose up, the helicopter will actually begin to fall backwards. So once your helicopter is lifted up off the ground by giving it some throttle, you'll want to tilt your nose down to move forward. So remember this golden rule: always pay attention to the position of your helicopter's nose. Having your nose in the down position means your helicopter will begin to move and fly forward. And when you tilt your nose in the up position, you will gradually come to a stop midair. And if you hold the nose up in this position, you'll begin to actually move and fall backwards. This is great for quickly braking, of course, and avoiding obstacles or preventing crashes. But if not managed correctly, it can actually cause a crash, of course. So remember, nose down means your helicopter will move forward. Nose up means your helicopter will move backwards. And with this simple knowledge of how your nose controls the direction of your helicopter, you'll be able to unlock the true power of flight and quickly speed up and slow down and even reverse your helicopter very quickly. So let's talk about how to prevent crashing and what causes crashes in the first place. A lot of pilots will give up in frustration and wonder why they even crashed to begin with. And I can assure you, it's much easier to prevent crashes once you understand how your helicopter's altitude is affected by your speed and nose position. So first of all, crashing usually happens when a pilot introduces too much nose tilt at high speeds, and this extreme nose tilt also causes the loss of altitude, because when your nose is tilted down like this, not only are you moving forward quickly, but you are also losing some altitude as well. So a normal nose tilt means you will move forward at normal speed, but lose some altitude while doing it, and an extreme nose tilt means that you'll be moving much faster but you will also be losing altitude at a faster rate as well. So to counter this, when your nose is tilted down, don't be afraid to introduce a bit of throttle, which will help you gain lift and altitude. And in some cases, you may also need to tilt your nose up while you introduce more throttle to prevent yourself from losing too much altitude too quickly and then ultimately crashing. So flying a helicopter is basically a constant dance. You're constantly managing your nose position, introducing throttle when necessary to provide additional lift, and basically trying to maximize your speed and altitude while preventing yourself from crashing in the process. And now I'm going to share with you one of my ultimate favorite tricks to use in the helicopter in order to dominate the enemy team. So, one of the most powerful tricks with the helicopter is the ability to switch to the gunner seat while you are in mid-flight. Now, of course, this ultimately means that you'll be leaving your pilot seat empty and losing altitude as you man the secondary gunner position, but it's worth the risk, trust me, because in the gunner position, you can easily take down clustered groups of enemies in one go, and then switch back to your pilot seat to regain altitude again and utilize the other weapons while your gunner seat cools down. This essentially doubles your firepower and makes you extremely powerful. I've seen so many pilots utilize this strategy, and they simply cannot be stopped. And of course, you can always have a buddy in the gunner seat with you as well, but a lot of lone wolf pilots will also form a one-man squad by going into the menu, creating a new squad for themselves, and then locking the squad to prevent anyone from joining their squad and using their gunner seat. This is definitely a lone wolf pilot tactic, of course, but it can be extremely powerful in the right hands. And if you don't have a buddy to play with at that particular moment, and you don't want just some random person utilizing the gunner seat, well, going this lone wolf tactic may be the best way to maximize your helicopter's potential. And without the weapons, the helicopter would be just some innocent, vulnerable bird flying in the sky with the other birds. So let's talk about the weapons and how you can utilize them to strike fear in your enemy's souls. So first of all, there are two seating positions in the helicopter: the pilot seat and the gunner seat. We already pretty much covered that, but the difference is the pilot seat has a completely different set of weapons than the gunner seat. And we're going to start off with the pilot seat. So the pilot obviously not only controls and flies the helicopter, but they have access to these following weapons, including guided missiles. So these missiles are best used against ground targets like vehicles and infantry, and they actually will follow the path you are looking at, which is really cool. Next up, you can switch to the air-to-air lock-on missile, and these missiles are best used when facing off against other helicopters, jets, and other aircraft. So my biggest tip when using these air-to-air missiles is you want to first lock on to the enemy aircraft, let it fully lock on, and then this usually will make the enemy pilot panic and they will release their countermeasures. Once you see them release their countermeasures, it's game on, fire your air-to-air missile, and then that should do the trick. And as the pilot, you're also responsible for your countermeasure flares. So you only really want to use your flares when the warning dialog that pops up on your screen indicating a lock-on changes from locking to incoming and flashes red. You don't want to do it before that. You want to make sure, again, that it says incoming and flashes red. If you release your flares any earlier than this, like when it says lock on or it's flashing yellow, you've pretty much screwed yourself over and left yourself vulnerable to an incoming missile. And if you ever run out of flares and your flares are on cooldown and you have a missile coming in, don't forget to use the terrain around you to do everything possible to avoid that missile. You can dip into valleys, maybe dip behind a mountainous terrain to avoid that missile and hope that that missile will hit that terrain instead of your helicopter. And now let's talk about that gunner seat, which, as I mentioned before, is super powerful, so don't neglect the gunner seat. So the gunner seat has the cannon available to them, and this is best for taking down infantry. It's not really best for taking down vehicles necessarily. It can do some damage, but it's going to be better for taking down large groups of infantry. And my goodness, can it do that job very well. Trust me, I've taken down entire groups of enemy using just the cannon alone, and the cannon is actually my #1 go-to weapon of the entire helicopter. You can also get access to air-to-ground lock-on missiles as well to take down those pesky AA guns down below, or anyone who's trying to kill you from down below utilizing a vehicle, so make sure to utilize that as well. And let's talk about repairing your helicopter. You can actually fly back to base to repair your heli, and also if you have a buddy in your helicopter, he can jump out and repair the vehicle for you as well. And don't forget, you can utilize the self-repair function to repair your helicopter by pressing right on the D-pad if you're using controller, but this only repairs a small percentage of health, so you usually want to fly back to home base to repair your vehicle. So pilots, I hope you found this tutorial helpful. If you did, smash that like button, and if you want to add something to the tutorial, be sure to comment down below with your tips and tricks. I really want to see them, and you know, I've had so much fun playing with the helicopter in Battlefield 6. It's easily one of my favorite vehicles in the entire game. Anytime the helicopter becomes available in a battle, you'll probably see me flying it. And if you are new here to the channel, hit that subscribe button as well, because we're going to have plenty of more Battlefield 6 coverage for you guys right here on the channel. I will see you pilots out there on the battlefield. Fly safe and take down some enemies down below.